Alright guys, I want to talk to you today about this new Taog's Hangar helicopter here, the Dauphin series I recently purchased. You get two helicopters with it, one being the HH version, and then you get the 365, and they each have their own bindings, key bindings that you need to do. So what I wanted to tell you first off is that I usually make guitar videos, guitar cover videos and stuff like that on my YouTube pages. It'd be the first time that I've ever made videos such as this where I'm just talking over a game. You know, I've never done that, especially on Microsoft Flight Simulator. But I wanted to put this out there, at least while it's still fairly new. Maybe it would help someone better understand how the system is working, at least from my perspective here. So here we are at Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. It's the airfield where I worked, near the airfield I should say. I worked for NASA actually, but I would see past this row of trees over here to the right, I would have my office over there and would see all sorts of, C-130s and Blackhawks, Apaches, and there's some GA aircraft here too, like you see in the Texan T6. A lot of the astronauts would come in here, fly in. It's at the Marshall Space Flight Center and the Redstone Arsenal. So that's where we are currently today. So I just wanted to do a little fly out here and tell you what my concepts are on this system here. And I want to say that I've seen some videos in real life, which before this aircraft came out, I watched the videos where real life helicopter pilots, rescue helicopter pilots, and basically were working for companies. I believe it was in Alabama, actually, maybe South Alabama, somewhere or another. And the company upgraded the flight line to these helicopters. So some of the the pilots had very many hours, thousands of hours flying, and this system here that's given me troubles gave them troubles, and they didn't like it, and it has caused some accidents too. But of course, I think once you learn it and treat it in a certain way, it is a very good system. And what I would like to have you think about is this as an autopilot. That was a concept that really helped me visualize how this system is working. But before we get too far into that, you need to go into your settings, go into your controls. And today I'm not going to be talking about game console controllers and that sort of thing. I'm using throttle body and a joystick. So assuming that you have a joystick, that's what we're going to talk about today. This helicopter is known as the 365, this variant here, and it's going to have modifications to the cyclic, which is your joystick. The Dauphin proper, the HH version, will have modifications to the cyclic and to the collective. So today we're not modifying the collective. So, and that is to say we're doing the joystick. So what I would do is select your joystick. You've already got a profile likely set up that you were using. If you've been flying any Blackhawks, Apaches, or gimbals, or any type of helicopter, you might already have a profile created for it. And that works. It's worked on every helicopter that I've purchased and was able to do. But just keep everything the same, but go in here and duplicate that and give it a new name. So you're creating an entirely new profile for this helicopter, but it's going to carry over all your settings that you currently were used to. And I just gave it a date here. Then down below that, there is some specific profiles that you can create. I would go ahead and create a new one, and I'm going to call it 365. So with the Dauphin, I'll have the HH version down here, and there'll be some slight modifications. I probably could just use the same profile. But once you get that done, if you go ahead and type in trim, you may see some settings in here from your earlier configuration. What you want to do is just put your mouse over it and then press the backspace on your keyboard. That'll clear them out. It's not going to erase the ones that you're using on the Black Hawk or your other helicopter profiles, only on this one. So, and in the MS Microsoft remembers that, so it's pretty cool. So clear those out. All right, so once you get that done, go ahead and type in beep. That's going to be the hat switch. Now, the hat switch is the same on your joystick that you would use for a Cessna to nose up, nose down. Same for the Black Hawk, nose up, nose down. Same thing on this Dauphin, nose up, nose down. For whatever reason, they call it a beep trim. So the hat switch is your beep trim. I'll show you when we get in there. But you want to go ahead and do down is down, up is up, right, and left is left. Simple as that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got that all done. You can go ahead and also configure this, trim release button, which is the last item that you're going to have to modify here. I use on my cyclic, the joystick, I'm using a button that I used on jets for the afterburner, and you want to set it for your trim release press and the trim release the same button. Okay, we get that done. When you go to the press, you want to make sure that input repetition is checked and set control release is not checked, nothing else, just that one. When that's done, come to the second one for the release. Go in, make sure that this is turned off and this is turned on. Okay. So, and all of this is done on the, what we're calling the cyclic in the helicopter. And that's really all there is. It's just your hat switch and then this trim release. All right. So we can go ahead and resume the flight now. Normally, I might have to start the engines and set these up. Some of these lights here would be engaged, but in this case they're not. We're fully fueled and ready to go. What I want to point out in this video that I'm going to, when I'm flying, I won't be able to use the mouse quite as much, but I want you to pay attention to a few things here as I'm talking. We're going to talk about the altitude indication right here. This is your barometric altitude. We're about 680 feet above sea level right now. We got a vertical speed that we're going to pay attention to. We have real altitude, which is very handy. Tells you how far you actually are above the ground. We've got our airspeed, so takeoffs and approaches would be somewhere in the 40 to 80 range here, and then cruise out at full altitude we're going to be doing around 120 to 100. And then also this here is your attitude indication. It's currently level, and that's where you want it to be. If I rotate, you can see that it moves, it changes. Now when we go into flight mode, that's going to be pretty important in relation to the system, this flight system here. Now this system is known as the S.A.S. and the A.S.E. and it comes default in the A.S.E. mode, but it's a stabilization feature on this helicopter, and it does your pitch, your roll, and your yaw. All three of those and twice over. So you have what they call two lanes, lane 1 and lane 2. All of this is considered, I consider it the autopilot for this helicopter. You to use the autopilot the same way you would in let's say a Cessna airplane, you can do altitude hold mode, you can do heading mode, A.E.S hold, you can fly to a VOR, you can use navigation. If you want to do the GPS, you can do navigation. The one thing I would say about that one is when you select navigation to fly your GPS route, you have to be sure to come down here and set this to nav mode. Otherwise, you're flying to a VOR. So what I'm going to do today is use altitude and heading mode. And then the programming that we did a release button, and then we programmed this hat switch here, the beep trim. That's what we did earlier. Up, down, left, right, and then this little hold button, or trim release button they call it. So this is your cyclic, and then you know this is the only one that we programmed. We did not program the collective at all. So cyclic and collective, and then these dials here. All right, think about this system. What in the world is he doing on the runway? Get out of the... I know, dude. He's wanting me to leave, I guess. Think about this as an autopilot system. And that's the concept that really helped me understand this a lot better. Even in a large aircraft, the pilots will use autopilot all the way down near to the runway, 1,000 feet, a mile out, or 5 miles, they may disengage the autopilot. And then when you're taking off, they do not have autopilot engaged. Well, this helicopter comes right out of the gate with this all turned on. So with that in mind, when we take off and when we land, we're going to be doing it full manual mode, no autopilot, just as you normally would. So as we're getting ready to take off down the runway here, go ahead and turn off lane 1 and lane 2. Now when you're in the air, that is a little bit difficult to reach over there and do that, but in flight, but you can do it. Now when the stabilization system has been disengaged, you see that autopilot is no longer active, and you have this alarm here, and you can click that to extinguish that light, but it's not very needed to do that. It'll go out when we re-engage it later. But it is an autopilot, it is a stabilization system, and you can end up fighting it the whole time and having a real bad day in this system. So think about it that way. Now we have full control over the rudders, the cyclic, and the collective. So we're going to roll down the runway here a little bit. We could have took off over there and taxied out, but we're going to raise the collective slowly. As we do, we push forward on the cyclic just a little bit. Let's make sure that we take our tags off here also. Get rid of the parking brake. There we go. As you increase the collective, you begin to taxi out, coming out of your ramp or whatever you're doing. I'm going to raise the collective a little more, push forward on the cyclic, and we're going to get airborne here. I'm doing a little bit of nose down on the cyclic. I want to use the hat trim, the beep trim button, which is your nose up, nose down. Doing a little nose down action right here. Notice that my vertical speed there is near 0. We're in pretty stable flight right now. We're doing 60 knots. Everything's looking good. We still have our caution indicators. I've got a little bit of vertical speed going here. I'm climbing out. I'm at 130 feet in altitude. Keeping a stable departure down the runway here. Increase my collective. That gives me some more speed and a little more altitude as well.
Lucky 07 Delta Tango Echo 6 Niner Niner. ATC services terminated.
Yeah, copy that. Roger that. Alright. Over there's the golf course, Redstone Arsenal. Space camp is right over there. You might see the rocket in the distance there. Space and Rocket Center's over there as well. Alright, so we're at altitude now, a real altitude at 400 feet, still climbing. Notice my vertical speed, I'm trying to keep around 500 feet to 1,000. So this whole departure is in full manual mode with the collective, cyclic, and the rudder pedals, and a little bit of the hat trim. So we're going to bank over to the right just a little bit using the cyclic stick. Keep an eye on the vertical speed. I want to try to keep a positive rate, 500 or so. Airspeed's at 100, so I need to increase my collective just a little bit more, give some more power. And I'm going to use the hat switch, and I'm going to nose down attitude, give it, you know, a little bit more forward speed. Okay, so I want to get up to a real altitude of maybe 1,500 feet to 2,000 feet for demonstration purposes here today. I'm flying out towards one of the VORs right out here at this limestone quarry, I guess it is. Speed's up around 100 knots. That's, you know, not bad. If I were on a mission or something somewhere or another, I would want that to be 120 or so. Be sure not to forget to raise your landing gear. Get that up. Let's take a look at it. Alright. I'm not too good at that, flying outside. And we get back and using the hat trim button, do a little bit of nose down. Again, keep an eye on this, all of these here. This use my mouse, it kind of goes crazy. Get stabilized again. Once I reach a stable attitude there in the middle, and a vertical speed that is somewhat around 0, I'm going to reach over and engage this autopilot system. It's a stabilization, so let me go ahead and do that now. Engage lane 1 and lane 2. Alright, I've got 6 greens, and it's going to stabilize me, but it's not going to control anything currently. Now, we're still gaining altitude. We're at 1,300 feet right now on the flat parts here, but we're gaining altitude at 500 feet per minute, or up to 1,000 sometimes, and we are, have 100 knots. Of course, as the more we go up, the slower, we may lose knots here. So we can control that, with the collective. But since we are in the stabilized mode here, / autopilot, I could choose to go ahead and use altitude hold if I'm happy with this. Maybe we're going to make a beeline straight ahead, 12 o'clock, and I don't need to sit here and play with this. So I can go ahead and do altitude hold mode. It's going to hold us at roughly 1900, and we're going to have a stabilized path here straight ahead. Okay, now we're using again autopilot and altitude hold mode. I would like to do a heading mode to do some navigating here. So just like in a real aircraft or whatever, before you engage your heading mode, or really on takeoff, and many times throughout the flight, you want to readjust your heading bug to the current vector that you're on, and that's just a good practice in case you need to engage the heading mode for some reason. You don't want it to you know, be spun around down here somewhere, and then you engage it and it starts banking off and you're freaking out and don't know why. So always adjust this, whether you're using it or not. Put this in the straight up and down at 12 o'clock, which is the direction you're currently going in. With that said, we're going to go ahead and engage the autopilot for heading mode, and then that lights up right here. Nothing really has changed since we already had this dialed in. We're still going straight. Alright, so maybe we have a 50-mile trip here, and there you go. It's going to be not much to it. We can adjust course by changing the heading bug here. As we do that, you'll see the aircraft will bank, and if you had your tablet pulled up and you had a flight plan or whatever, you could follow it using your heading bug. Of course, we're going to be located just north of this and try to come back down this way. You could engage GPS, as I said earlier. I want to fly due west here, so we'll set that to somewhere like that. And so far so good. There's really not a lot of problems. Now, if you already were trying to fly this using your cyclic, your joystick, you probably run into some problems, and you think, well, what I need to do then is I got to set these trim buttons up. That's probably what it is, or I've discovered this trim release button, so I need to engage that, and that's probably what I need to do. And basically you find out this thing bucks like a Bronco, and it just is not going to be friendly towards you, and you're not going to have a good day. So if you keep in mind that this is basically an autopilot system and fly it using heading mode or GPS mode or altitude hold mode and that sort of thing, or just go manual mode, then I think that'll probably help you a lot, because you don't have to deep dive into these systems to really understand this. Okay, I mean, you can, but I'm not, so Alright, so I'm not even touching, I'm not touching pedals, I'm not touching anything, and it's just flying it here. Now, the vertical speed, it's generally keeping at the same rate because we're in altitude hold mode, and that number is varying, of course, because of the trees are closer to me than the dirt is, so it's going to go up and down a little bit. But I can control the aircraft using the heading bug here. Now, what if I wanted to increase altitude and get up to 2,500? Well, I need to raise collective for starters, and I need to change, my attitude to nose up, nose down in order to gain altitude, and I want to watch my speed here. Now, if I change the collective currently and have a look here at the altitude, I should be dropping, but there's really nothing happening here. Okay, now what really is going on is I'm changing my speed. So if I decrease collective in the current configuration that we're in, I'm going to slow the aircraft down. That's all I'm going to be doing because I'm in altitude hold mode. If I want to increase altitude to say 2,200 feet, I would disengage altitude right here, altitude hold, and watch the vertical speed. Now I'm going to increase collective over here. I'll raise my collective. I'm not currently doing anything to the cyclic. I can use the hat button on the cyclic and raise the nose up by just clicking clicking on the hat here, the beep trim. Now you see it's going up. And of course, it's still trying to do stabilization and this other things. And keep in mind again about the clamping spring systems that are down here, so it's keeping the stick centered. I am not doing any left-right motion on this cyclic at all. I'm using the hat trim. So anyway, here's our vertical rate of speed. I would like to have it around 0 so I can use this the hat trim and go nose down a little bit. I can decrease the cyclic just a little bit. Maybe we're at 2,800 indicated feet here, and I like that one, so I would click on altitude hold, re-engage that. Now the autopilot is going to hold me at roughly 2,800 feet, and we're going to continue as we were. Now the Huntsville International Airport is off to our south there, so I'm going to fly past it by using the heading bug. I'm going to rotate that around to the south. As you can see, there's really not a big problem with the helicopter. It's doing perfectly fine at changing its position here. A lot of times in helicopters I just fly manually. I don't use any of the systems. I feel like they were kind of rudimentary. Some of them were. I guess I fly a lot of the older stuff, maybe, I don't know, but this one has a really good system here, the stabilization / autopilot. So alright, we're doing altitude hold in heading mode now. If I want to gain altitude or decrease altitude, I need to disengage this here. That's not a problem. Otherwise, keep it engaged. We take a look out the window. I think we're pretty close. Should be close to the somewhere we're at. Here we are. We're north over here. There are international airports down here. Okay. So that I've demonstrated, how to use the heading bug. So, what if we want to keep the altitude that we have, but we want to control, we want to control the flight path left and right a little bit better, and we don't want to use heading. Okay, well, our heading indicator is pointed in the direction that we're currently going, so we can disengage heading mode. And we're going to remain on the course that we're on now. If I change the, the heading bug now, nothing is happening. It is not changing because we've disengaged that from the autopilot. I'm now going to use, I don't know why that's doing that. I'm now going to use the hat switch, the beep trim. If I trim over to the right, notice that the helicopter changes course. Maintaining the altitude that we're currently at relatively, it is now changing directions over towards the right. If I move the hat switch on my cyclic to the center again, not really the center, but I'm leveling out the system using the attitude indicator. There's two triangles right here you can watch. Also this line right here. When these two triangles are together, you're straight. So I'm going to use the hat and move over to the left, bank over to the left, I'm holding, and I'm going to let go of the hat trim, and it's going to maintain this attitude right here because I'm not doing it. I'm not telling it to do anything, so it's going to sit here and circle all day long until it runs out of fuel. So that's what's going to happen. So I have to use the hat trim again back to the right, and when I get it level, I'm going to release it somewhere like that, and there we go, and that looks good. Now that is controlling it with the beep trim left and right, not the heading mode. We're still in autopilot. We're still in the S.A.S, A.E.S stabilization. Now, You can try to use the cyclic and rotate right and left, but look at how that is. You see what's going on here? That is not good. That is not. I'm not doing this. It's doing it itself. I'm gonna have to regain control now. But this may be the problem that some of you are having, is fighting that autopilot system. And my airspeed just went nutty, so everything just went crazy. So now I can push the trim release button, but that's really not helping me either. You've got to press and hold that and try to fight it. So you're going to do what's called fly through the autopilot. So that is just really not a good situation. And many times after you push the trim release, it goes into this semi-hover mode here, which it's currently doing, and it's just crappy. We don't want to do it that way. So let me try to regain control of this again. Just a collective. I'm going to use my attitude indication up here, right here, to try to regain, a stable approach here. I'm going to disengage altitude hold because it's really going to try to maintain an altitude when it don't even know what to do. But now that we're level out right here again, somewhat, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to hold this altitude, which ought to be one less thing I have to worry about. And we'll see. No, I still don't like it. So in general, it just doesn't like doing that. So yeah, that's crazy. That's nutty. All right, well, I was gonna do this later, but we can just disengage. This is the problem here. Disengage the stability and autopilot altogether. And look at our airspeed. It's put us basically into a hover. But I'm in full manual control using rudders and cyclic. So if you want to get out of this problem that you've created, just go ahead and disengage lane 1 and 2. Autopilot will turn off and you'll have this alarm here flashing. So I'm going to fly out over this this runway here at Huntsville International Airport. Looking at my airspeed, it looks pretty good. It's not bad. I am vertical descending at 1,000 feet per minute. I'm going to pull back on the cyclic, try to let it level out and get that rate of vertical speed back to around 0. So I'm using my hat, which is my beep trim on the stick here. Get it to around 0, where my stick is basically centered. I'm not pushing forward, not pulling back. Using the hat, we're around 0 now. Now I can almost let go of the stick while I'm still in full manual mode, and it feels pretty good. It's pretty stable now. I could re-engage the stability at this point, and we should be good to go on it again. So let's do that. Let's do lane 1 and lane 2. And now I release all the controls. And I am not positive why it is having such difficulties. Let me do altitude holds. Anyway, I don't know why it's doing that. But that is really the main issue with this system here, is that, let me do the trim release button. See if that'll do us. It is awful. I'll go down in collective here. That altitude is going nutty. Now it's raising us up real high, trying to basically put us in a 0 airspeed and a hover mode. You know, even though I did not tell it to do that. So you probably would run into some of these problems like this, where now we have a 0 airspeed. You know, let's take off altitude hold. And just get rid of this again, get rid of the autopilot. Man. Whew. Alright, I'm in full control now. Thinks we're going to land. Oh, jeez. So really, it kind of did demonstrate what I wanted to show you. You know, that system really can get really buggy really quick by using that trim release feature. Now I'm currently flying at manually mode. I'm doing nose down, trimming it down, pushing forward on the cyclic a little bit, and we're just getting, you know, getting a forward motion going here. I'm wanting to get over there and land. So you can fly this thing manually, which in many times is going to be your best bet. As soon as you run into problems with the S.A.S, you should just disengage it and treat it as an autopilot system. I was hoping that at least it would work, but once it freaks out, I don't know why, you know, it doesn't like anything else. Let me try again here. And 1 and 2's engaged again. Okay, we've got vertical rate here. Let me try to do a altitude hold and a heading hold. Let me see if I can get it to halfway work again. Alright. Yeah, it's having difficulties. Well, let's rotate to the left using heading mode here. Try that. No, it's really not liking it. It's probably going to crap out or something. It's not going to be friends. But let's just disengage it again. We'll fly it manually. Get this puppy back on the ground. Alright, keep an eye on the airspeed and my vertical speed. I'd like to stay around under 120, between 100 and 120 on knots. I'm going to keep my 2,300 feet above ground. I'm going to try to stay around 0 on the vertical speed. Using a little bit of rudder. We could be having a lot of wind gusts, I don't know. Which this system should be, you know, nice at holding some of that off base. At any rate, this is Huntsville International Airport over here to the left at 9 o'clock. Redstone Arsenal is going to be over to 11 o'clock. So we're going back to Redstone. We're going to land. And we're just going to have to fly manually because the system here has not played nice. And it all comes down to pushing that trim release button. I'm just going to extinguish that. And we're currently still showing our autopilot is not engaged, which we know. I am doing a little bit of lateral trimming, so we seem to be having some sort of crosswinds or something, but it shouldn't be that bad. At any rate, let's take a look outside. But if you run into trouble with this system, just be sure to disengage what I call the autopilot, and that's going to solve most of your problems. If you're able to fly a Black Hawk or any other helicopter like that, and you've got everything set up for it, just be sure you get your trims, your beak trims set up here on your cyclid stick, and you'll be golden for that. And it works well as far as stability goes until it doesn't. And that's the problem. So you know, and maybe with more experience, certainly we would understand why it's not, you know, behaving like we want it to. But in real life, you know, like I was saying, some of these emergencies these pilots get into, and they've crashed, man. And I don't know. Anyway, back to the flight here. We're at 2,300 feet. Over here is Redstone Arsenal. There's one of the S.A.S. Test towers right there. I'm trying to use my left hand on my joystick. It's not working very well. Let's talk about clocks here. So at 11 o'clock, we'll be at the runway. And our vector is going to be out here towards this test stand at here. It's very cool. Right in front of me at 12 o'clock is the vibration test stand at Redstone that the original space shuttle, I think it was the Enterprise, that did not fly, but they brought it here as a test article for vibration testing. Pretty cool. My building would have been one of these blue buildings off at 10 o'clock, right outside the runway here. That's where I was. So I'm still in manual mode. I am decreasing my collective now to lower my airspeed. I'm going to use the hat trim. There's the S.A.S. tower there, stand there. A lot of research developments going on here. 1 o'clock is the vibration test stand right there. And then again, these blue buildings is where I was. We're going to fly right over it, basically. But we're doing collective, lowering collective, and I'm pulling up on the hat trim, beak trim, nose up. And then I'm using the cyclic, just leveling this out. So when I get down to around 80 feet, normally I would have used the heading bug or showed you how to fly it in with the, you know, the hat beak trim navigation there on the stick, but we had a malfunction, I guess. So let's go ahead and decrease the speed. I'm in these blue buildings here to the just right out, right over the nose. That's where I was. Coming up on the nose. Try to reduce the speed. Need to get her gear down, so I'm gonna go ahead and lower that. I need to map that. Just come up on the pitch the nose up a little bit. Decrease the collective. Get your feet on the pedals. Indicated airspeed's at 80, right over the threshold. We're 400 feet. Gotta be pulling back on the cyclic, nosing up, decreasing collective. We got 3 greens on the gear. Going to increase collective to stop some of that motion downwards. Pulling back, increasing throttle. I'm going to nose down, try to level me out, using collective to keep us off the runway, gain a little altitude, and the pedals, rudder pedals, just steer me over here towards this little area here I'm going to park at. So my cyclic is almost in a neutral position, so I'm using very minimal inputs to it, and I'm doing most of the work with the foot pedals and the collective. So currently at 45 feet. It's a good flying aircraft, actually. I mean, I really do. I like it. But if you're going to use that stability system, you better... I was kind of anticipating it was going to do that. That was part of the video, was to show you how it would mess up. But, yeah, you know, it was not even recoverable. So, I don't know. But, using the rudder pedals, a collective, I'm just feathering the collective up and down in very, very small increments here. Pulling back on the yoke a little bit. We're going to go down. We're at 15 feet, pulling back. And we're going to gently just touch down right here. And then I'm going to engage the brakes. I don't even know if you could tell that we touched down. Brakes on. Park brakes on. Alright, so, I mean... So I would say that was a pretty good landing. I mean, it was so smooth that you couldn't even tell it, and that was in full manual mode. Now, there is a hover feature. It can do hovering, and it likes to go into hover mode, even at altitude, for no understandable reason. But basically, if you're taking off and you're landing, you should be in manual mode, which is to disengage these two right here, lane 1 and lane 2. When you get up to altitude, you can go ahead, if you're level, engage those, and then you can fly with altitude hold and heading mode, or GPS if you want to. But you know, I don't know about using the trim release. Is really just something I do not like doing. As you saw in flight, it just really didn't like it at all. And it really gets squirrely, and it just generally messes up. So, hopefully that was helpful. Maybe it helped somebody. I mean, it helped me understand, you know, how to think about the systems in here and treat it more like an autopilot type system. And that's it. Sorry that we had an unrecoverable situation there, but at least we're safely on the ground. So with that, I think I'm going to go back and play some guitar. Thanks for watching.